In trading, knowledge is power, and lack of knowledge in what you're doing can be costly, very costly. So you need a solid foundation of quality market education. Whether you're new to trading or a seasoned veteran looking to add advanced strategies to your arsenal, there's always something to learn and something to improve on. And now you can access the same knowledge that professional traders receive with Market Rebellion's Trading Education. I'm Bill Johnson, Head of Options Education here at Market Rebellion, and we've assembled a comprehensive curriculum based on decades of real trading experience, covering everything you need to know about trading options from beginner to advanced. We go way beyond the nuts and bolts of options theory to teach you how to apply specific trading strategies and the techniques needed to adapt your trades when markets shift. Regardless of your goals, you'll gain access to the education you need with easy-to-consume lessons so you can learn to trade with confidence, enhance your knowledge, and master the practical skills required for market success. So please join us for in-depth trading education only from Market Rebellion. Hey, good morning once again, Market Rebels. It's that time again for Coach's Corner, and I know what you're thinking. Something looks off here. Where's Stu? Well, Stu has been plagued with some technological difficulties, just moved into a brand new house. Yesterday, electric lock wouldn't let him in, had to call a locksmith. Hours later, they get in. Today, power's out. So he missed our afternoon webinar yesterday. Hopefully, he will be with us for this afternoon. So, that's why he's not here. So we decided to go ahead and do it anyway because we're just not sure if his power is even going to be up, but hopefully he'll be with us for our afternoon Q&A. So it's just me for today, but we're still going to have some very good information for you. And for today, let's start off with our Chalk Talk question. You bought a vertical spread, easy enough right there. Stock falls and you buy back the short for a profit. Right, so we know that short options make money as the stock price falls, and so short calls, I should say. And so if you have this short position, the stock price falls, and you say, oh, I can buy it back for a profit. And so the question is, can you apply that profit to the long and gain an edge? And this is something that a lot of traders will do. It's actually one of the reasons that will attract them to spreads, because they'll say that virtually no matter what happens, I can somehow make lemonade out of lemons, right? I can say, all right, well, if it falls, I'll just buy back the short and I'll lock in this gain. And if it goes up, I'll just close the entire spread and get a gain. It seems like no matter what happens, I can wiggle my way into a gain. And that's really the essence of the question. Does that give you an edge? So let's go find out what the answer is. And of course, the title right here for today is going to give it away. Credits don't create an edge. This is critically important, people, that you understand that. Now, we're not saying that vertical spreads are bad. I use them all the time. We use them for our ICF, our instant cash flow service, all the time. But you have to do them for the right reasons. And the wrong reason is to say this idea that no matter what happens, I can lock in one of the legs for a gain, and then that somehow gives me an edge. That is false, but we're going to find out why. So let's start off with the vertical spread. Let's say that you buy the $100 call and you spend $8. All right, that's the market price of the $100 call right now. And you sell the 105 call for $6. It's trading for $6. We know it's got to be with less money. It's a higher strike call, same expiration. So if we do these together, if I buy the 100 call and sell the 105, that would be the 100-105 vertical, we can enter that for a net debit of 2. So the net debit just means it's the net, depends on the trade, could be a debit or a credit. In this case, it's a net debit. I'm going to spend 8, I'm collecting 6. So on a net basis, I have spent $2 out of pocket. Because of that, my maximum loss is 2, that's the amount that I spent, and the maximum gain is 3. And that's because we have $5 difference in our strikes. I have the right to pay 100, obligation to sell at 105. That is 5 points. That's the most this spread can ever be worth. So if I paid $2 for it, and the most it can be worth is 5, then the maximum it can be worth to me is 3. So this becomes our vertical spread. This is our risk graph. There's our -2. Okay, so we can see that no matter what happens at 100 or below, that's the worst that can happen. Stock could come all the way down to 0. We're out $2. On the high side, we also see that we flattened out up here, and that lines up at +3. So if we ignore this minus sign, we just look at 2 and 3, that has to add up to the difference in strikes, which we just saw was right there at 5. So that's the risk graph. We can spend 2 and make 3, and a lot of traders will say, oh, that's a good risk reward ratio. I can spend 2 and maybe make 3. I can make a 50% gain on my money. And so this is our risk graph, limited risk, limited return. But now let's say that some time goes by, 30 days, maybe we did a 60-day spread or something, 45 days, but some time goes by and the stock has now plummeted. It's now down to 90. And the 105 call that, remember, was worth 6 is now trading for $1. That's the market price. So now traders say, hey, no problem. This is one of the reasons that I do a spread. It's a benefit to me. I'll buy back the short and bank a profit. I sold this guy right here for 6. I buy it back for $1. I'm up $5. All right, so there's their logic. We sold for 6. We buy back for $1, and there's our profit of 5. And then they get into more illusions. They'll say, let's apply that profit to the long. And now I've got an edge. This is the beauty of spreads. This is false. It's an illusion. And now here's why. So let's say that our long call, remember, was initially $8. That was the market price when we bought it. But now we get this credit of 5. So the trader is saying, I spent 8, I collected or banked this $5 gain, and therefore I now have $3 into it. Right? I initially spent 8, but look, this is my edge. I only have $3 into it. That was the reason for locking in this $5 gain. But if we do that, sorry about that, let's say a pricing model shows that this call is worth 2. So when I went through and did these prices and made that stock fall to 90 with 30 days left, the pricing model says that this $100 call is worth 2. But we're into it now for 3. Is that an edge? Assuming that this is a fair value, which roughly speaking should be, or at least that should be your expectation, is that if it's 2, but we're now into it for 3, how is that an edge? We're actually paying 50% more than the market value. You can't claim an edge with that. Now, here's the reason why it becomes an illusion. Can we say that we sold for 8 and we bought back for 5 and I'm into it for 3? Sure. But remember, debits are credits, credits are debits. Don't get confused about that. Don't only focus on the credit and say I've got an edge. Because if there's a credit, somewhere there's a debit. So watch this. The pricing model, again, says that it's worth 2. That would be our market price. We sold for 6 and bought back. What did we buy it back for? $1. So while some traders are saying, oh, look, I got a $5 inflow of $5 cash, we could just as easily say you have spent another $1 into the position. But see, traders don't do that. They like to mentally account for it and say, well, I sold it for 6, bought it back for 5, or bought it back for $1, so I'm up 5. You can do that, but it's still giving you a position value of 3 when the market values it at 2. But probably an easier way to see what's happening is to simply look at the market price on your broker's platform, which we're assuming is 2. This is our long 100 call. The market says it's now worth 2. Is it worth paying $1 for to be left with that position? Because that's what you're doing. You're closing out the 105. It's going away. You're going to be long this 100 call for 3. So notice we can arrive at it 2 different ways. I sold for 8 and collected 5. That gives me 3. But I could also say the market price is 2 and I had to spend 1. And right there is giving me 3. So that's really the issue. When traders say, I have an edge because I've locked in this gain, which is not really true. You've just packed up from one table and moved to another. You still have money exposed to a different distribution. But we can also say that you had to spend a dollar in a position that was already sinking. And is that really the best thing that you want to do? So, one of the lessons here is that as a trader, don't get caught up into the debits and credits or, oh, I locked in a gain and therefore I have a profit. That's such an illusion. What you have to do is say, given where we are right now, my 100 call is worth 2, does not matter what you paid for it. It's worth 2. Do we want to stay into it? That's the question. And do we want to stay into it by bumping up the price 50%? If the answer is no, I wouldn't be buying back that 105 call, and I certainly wouldn't be buying it back claiming that I have an edge because I've locked in a $5 gain. What you've really done is pretty much sealed the deal, as that it's going to be a $3 loss, which was worse than the $2 that you started with. Okay, so again, it's one of the things to really show here is that there are a lot of trader illusions in there that go on. People think that this is the way that markets work or that a spread works, and they're just not. And that's why we like to encourage you to please, before you especially start putting serious money into it, to understand your options, your pricing, and your theory. And a great way to do that is to join us. Stu is usually with us. We're going to have it today. We do it every Tuesday, Thursday at noon Eastern time. And Tuesday we have a beginner, intermediate. Thursday we have an advanced. But just shoot that QR code right there. Talk to a sales rep. We have phenomenal conversations just like this, showing people all of the illusions where traders make mistakes. So here's our graph again. Let's look at what happened. We started off with the 100-105 vertical spread. Net debit of 2. Max gain right here at 3. Now, if we close the 105, we transfer from the black to the blue. I've just uncapped that upside. But the market says that that call right now is worth 2. It does not matter what you paid for it. It doesn't matter that I want to apply this credit to it. It doesn't matter. Strip all of that away. It's worth 2. Simple. That's where we are now. And the question is, do we want to stay here? But when we bought that option back, that 105 call for $1, instead of looking at it as though I'm banking a $5 credit, let's see it for what it is. We're putting another dollar into the position. And what does that do to my blue line right here? Shifts it down. I'm actually, and if we're going to assume that this blue line is fairly valued, we're stepping into something at a worse price. Now remember, we assume that the stock is way down here. Is that really saying that you have an edge? I'd hardly say so. Market values it at 2, you're in it for 3. You need to go from 90 to 100 just to get it at the money. And actually you need to go to 103 just to break even. It's sunk. And yet traders now say that's an edge. It's not, and that's what often leads to the losses. It's having the wrong perceptions. So a little analogy I like to do with this is to think about a restaurant that is closing, or it's on its way out, and they say, oh, you know what? We're going to sell off our tables and chairs. And then they announce, hey, everybody, the tables and chairs division was profitable. How would the market respond if this were a publicly traded company saying that the business is sinking? Is that going to make the stock go up? Is it fair for the restaurant to say that we have an edge because we just banked a profit? No, it's nonsense. And yet traders use that as logic for using spreads because they say no matter what happens, I can lock in, if it goes against me, I can lock in the short for a gain and I'll apply it to the long. Good luck. That doesn't survive 5 minutes of math, but it often, unfortunately, survives a lot of trader logic. So again, that's one of the things that we like to expose here. So again, just to be clear, we are not saying that spreads are bad. What we're saying is that you should not use it on the pretense that no matter what happens, I can end up with an edge. Because if it goes against me, I can buy back this short for a gain. That is false. So the thing to take from here is that a reduced probability structure which is what we saw, the stock fell to 90, cannot magically finance itself into a higher probability structure. That's the catch right there. That's the logical trap. People are saying, hey, look, the stock went from 100, fell to 90. That's a reduced probability structure. But you cannot magically finance itself by saying, oh, look, I just locked in a gain and now I've got an edge. And that's what traders are saying. I've now transformed it into a higher probability structure. No, you didn't. You put more money into a bad deal. All you're doing is selling off the tables and chairs into a failing restaurant. So again, hopefully it gives you some good insights. So much of this game is not about necessarily picking the right stock. Anybody can do that. Anybody, even with good logic and good information, can step into a bad one, right? Good decisions can have bad outcomes. But what matters is that when you are in those good trades, that you're not making them bad by using bad logic. So this is one that we see a lot, and hopefully that gives you a new perspective on vertical spread. So let's come back to our chalk talk. You bought a vertical spread, stock falls, you buy it back, and you buy back the short for a profit. That's exactly what we saw in the example. Can you apply that profit to the long and gain an edge? There's the key. Can you gain an edge? Can you apply it to the long? I don't see why not. You can. We saw it. You can two different ways of seeing the same thing. That's not the problem. The problem is when traders say that I have an edge because I've now applied it to the long. So the answer there is unequivocally no. Don't let anybody tell you differently. You did not gain an edge. So that's kind of our short version of Coach's Corner here today. And hopefully for the rest of you at noon today, we'll hopefully see Stu in there. But we wish him the best of luck with his power. At least he's back in his house now. And for everybody else, have a great rest of the week. We'll see you on, some of you on Lunch Crunch at noon. We'll see you on Cocktail Hour tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And for everybody else, we'll see you next Thursday on Coach's Corner. We'll see you then.